What is up, Watch Fam? I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 watches under the $10,000 mark, but I'm not doing so alone. I've got some help. I've got Anthony from London Jewelers. Anthony.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Anthony. I am one of the managers at London Jewelers in Manhasset. I am so excited to be joining Christian today to talk about 5 different watches under $10,000, a very important price point, and we're going to get into it.
All right, Anthony, what are you wearing on your wrist today?
Not under $10,000, but I am wearing my Rolex 16528 yellow gold Zenith Movement Daytona. A grail of mine in my collection, and you know what? During these difficult times where we have to sit in the house, you might as well have something cool on your wrist. So, what are you wearing today?
I am wearing something, also from Rolex. I'm wearing a Rolex Datejust from the late 80s, but this one is pretty cool because, one, I mean, even barring the most exceptional part of it, it is a classic watch, a watch that goes, with kind of everything, but this one does have a Tiffany stamp, which I just, I love that. Tiffany stamps are tough for me in the vintage world because, once you get into models like the Daytona or like the Submariner, you can pay a premium for a Tiffany stamp that is, $20, $30, $50, $100,000, and plus you can go more for premium Tiffany stamps. But when you're talking about the Datejust lines, the day dates, the premiums are much smaller. It's a couple of $1,000, and percentage-wise they're significant, but it's a couple $1,000, and in the vintage watch world, it's looked at as kind of a value prop. But that being said, let's move into modern watches. Let's talk about some of the watches. Obviously we plucked these watches from the London Jewelers showcases, right? Obviously there are plenty of watches there that are significantly over 10K, but because they do carry a lot of brands, all over the spectrum, this was a pretty easy thing. I think we pulled these watches together in like 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, and I think our main goal was to really get a list that has unique watches. And being London Jewelers, we carry in the Manhasset location alone, we have over 30 brands. You would think it'd be difficult, but I think between the two of us, we came together these 5 amazing watches pretty quick. So
let's jump into the first one. And the first one comes from Oris, right? This is an Aquis model, but not any Aquis. This is an interesting one. This piece is limited to 2,000 pieces. It is part of their Clean Ocean initiative, which we will get into in a second. But let's talk about the watch itself, the specifications, how it wears. I like it a ton. One, I'm a sucker for blue, and they did a really good job with the color in here. Do you agree?
I absolutely love it. I love the fact that they dared to make a dive watch under 40 millimeters. This one comes in just under that at 39.5 millimeters. It has a beautiful blue ceramic bezel that pairs really well with this beautiful blue dial. And as you stated, it is a limited edition. They didn't just slap something on the front of the dial stating that it's a limited edition. If you actually turn it over, you can see bits of plastic that have been pulled out of the ocean to form the caseback, and that makes every single one of these pieces unique. And I think that's a really special part about this watch.
I agree, and I'll elaborate a little bit. I always have a problem with limited editions. I always come into limited edition models with kind of a very skepticism, because so often these are cash grab opportunities that the brands don't actually put development into. They just kind of let's just throw together an LE real quick and people will buy it, right? So I don't like that. It kind of encourages laziness. That said, Oris did a great job here. One, they actually did integrate, like you said, with the case back. They integrated a piece of what they are kind of paying homage to or paying respect to into the watch itself, right? With the plastic case back, or with the plastic emblem on the case back. That being said, they didn't throw on the dial, Clean Ocean initiative. Right? They didn't make it so kind of obvious and tacky. They did a nice job. Now, a little bit further, let's talk about this for a second. I think it's really nice that a brand like Oris, a luxury brand, an entry-level luxury brand, but a luxury brand nonetheless, decided to take on this, social responsibility. When we're talking about, the luxury world, watches, cars, or whatever, we're all kind of living in a bubble, talking about this stuff. They're obviously very expensive. You can buy a watch for I was going to say a couple $100. You could buy a watch for $20, right? So when you're spending, when you're spending a lot of money on watches, when you're indulging in luxurious things, it is nice to know that the company that is selling them, actually is giving back to the world that supports it. I like that. Maybe I'm a sucker, or maybe I'm a sap, but I kind of like it.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. And back to what you stated in the beginning is they didn't do it in a very gimmicky way. It's tastefully done, which is great for the watch collector. But more importantly, it really is doing something that everyone needs right now, and that's cleaning up the ocean. And it goes hand in hand with a dive watch. Yeah. And it just looks really cool. If you get a chance, you can come in, take a look at the watch, and the caseback is very cool.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other, right? You can't have a dive watch without the ocean.
Exactly.
It's and the last thing we should talk about here is the price point. This watch is $2,300, right?
Absolutely. Great price point. I really think what Oris has been doing in the last few years is absolutely killing it in terms of value for the dollar with Oris. This watch in particular, it's an automatic watch. It's the perfect size. It has a beautiful blue ceramic bezel. Any one of those components in a different brand might be double the price, but Oris really packs a lot of punch for the dollar, and that's why I love this watch. And it's also a limited edition, so it's a very cool piece.
Yeah, I agree. $2,300 sounds dramatically low for the watch. To me, that just means that Oris is trying to, over-deliver for now and for the foreseeable future, so they can build a larger and more entrenched, brand. And people will appreciate that. There will be many more Orises in people's collections, because of this strategy, this over-delivering of value, than a lot of other brands in the price point. Yep. So I admire their pricing strategy a lot. Now, to another brand that is very well known for their pricing strategy, one of the brands that we all really admire, a traditional Swiss manufacturer, JLC, and this is their classic Reverso. I love this watch.
I don't know if you can get a more iconic watch. I mean, this watch made since the 1930s, the original sport watch made for polo players, just a very, very cool piece. And the fact that you can get a watch in this price point from a brand with this much history and this much prestige is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's $6,000, and again, not to trivialize the $6,000 mark, but $6,000 is a price point that a lot of luxury manufacturers do scoff at, and yet here comes JLC, who likes to over deliver at this price point. Even from whether it's the icon status of the watch, the build quality of the watch. This case is, if you've ever held a Reverso, if you've ever flipped a Reverso, it's built so well and so solidly. This is not a case that you can build like on the cheap, right? So from case to design, which is obviously classic, to the movement, which is beautifully hand finished, they do a wonderful job top to the bottom on the Reverso. I never fail to be impressed by this brand.
It's a fantastic company known as the watchmaker's watch, but I think this watch in particular, there's a lot of different variations. The one that we chose today is not a duo, because we wanted to go with the original that has a solid case back, because the importance of having the ability to engrave the back of this watch, which London Jewelers actually provides for any watch purchased in one of our locations. We offer complimentary engraving, but with the Reverso, we can actually set up where we can send the watch back to Switzerland to JLC for you and get either a date put there, initials, text. If you want something a little bit more elaborate, there might be a charge from JLC for that, but that's something we can absolutely look into for you. It makes the perfect wedding watch, graduation watch, and it really adds that much more history and value to the collector, I think. And again, this is at $6,000, and it has so much history to the watch. I think on this list in general, this might be one of my favorites, and it comes in almost right in the middle of our price point.
What I love about the Reverso kind of culturally is it reminds me of the kind of the changing definition of what is a sports watch, right? This watch came out in 1931, like you mentioned before, for polo players, because if you wore a standard acrylic crystal, it can be very easily shattered while playing polo. But if you flip a watch, you're able to actually conceal that crystal. The watch is obviously more durable. This is a watch you didn't have to take off to play, and you could still flip back and check the time. So that was, to me, first of all, it was ingenious that they even had this concept, and two, the fact that they really haven't wavered that design since, it is extremely impressive. I mean, I appreciate that the Reverso, while of course has evolved, has been modernized, namely in the amount of Reversos they do offer. The Reverso collection is huge. There's like a flavor for everybody. But the classic Reversos, which come in small, medium, and large, we have the large one here today. They are so traditional, so true to the original kind of concept of the watch. I was telling you before this call, the Reverso is one of the watches I've actually never owned for myself, and it's such a me watch. I don't know why I don't own one. I'm probably gonna buy one tonight.
It is a very you watch.
I can just like imagine all the straps. Yeah, like imagine all the straps I could wear. Like it's just such a cool thing. But yeah, I really, really admire this watch. And again, $6,000. It's $6,000 for the large.
Right.
The medium is $5,300, and the medium is probably the one that I would buy. Even though here are the photos of the large on my wrist, I don't think the large looked bad. The large actually looked fairly good on my wrist. I would still go with the medium, but wow.
You know what? That's a great point too. This is one of those watches that's very interesting. You really don't understand the size on paper. You really need to come in and try this on, being the shape of the watch. Totally. So I recommend if you can, and obviously once one of the jewelers reopens, please come in and try it on. We have a great selection of JLC in general, but obviously the Reverso we're talking about, many different Reversos. Come try it on. We have them in every different size. They all wear very differently, but me personally, I'd probably go with the medium as well.
Now, on to another brand that is far younger than JLC, but this is a brand that's become one of my favorites in the last kind of year. This is Grand Seiko, and this watch is one that we haven't gone hands-on with in person yet. We've done some of the other Four Seasons, but this is the Four Seasons Spring Edition, which is so. I mean, it's so freaking good. Starting off with like the most, kind of like, superficial remark. When's the last time you see a watch brand doing a pink dial so well?
Right.
Pink is almost an impossible color to execute, but they did it with such detail and such taste, and the texture on the dial. And we'll go more into the details on the rest of the watch, but the dial explains exactly what kind of Grand Seiko is, right? They pay so much attention to every little detail, and they've done it again here. It's a fantastic watch.
It's just the perfect execution of a watch. I mean, the attention to detail, the Japanese culture, this is what they're known for. Whether it's the Zaratsu polishing on a titanium case and bracelet, which is so hard to even polish, and the fact that they can get that mirror-like finish on there is unbelievable. Then you go to the dial, which is so labor intensive, and it's quite the amount of steps to get that depth of feel in the dial with that texturing, and the fact that it is pink and it is wearable by men. It's just such an amazing watch.
My God,
it's one of my favorite watches from Grand Seiko. Obviously Grand Seiko a bit newer, but if you go to the name Seiko, synonymous with watchmaking and has been around since the 1800s. So I mean, Seiko really offers so much value at any given price point, and Grand Seiko, the reason why they are where they are today and they're making such a big splash in the watch community is because people are starting to realize the value behind Grand Seiko and what you're getting for the dollar amount. I believe the piece we're talking about today is $6,300. The movement is unbelievable, and it's regulated to -15 plus 15 seconds, not for the day, but for the month.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, they have standards of their own. So rigorous. The only other brand that you really hear that holds, their own standards that's outside of, COSC is Omega. You do hear about their Metas, but Grand Seiko does. They're supremely accurate. They just are. They have that perfect fine sweep. Of course, a product of their spring drive movements, which Grand Seiko explains, and I loved when I heard it for the first time, is the result of having a history so developed in both mechanical and quartz watch manufacturing. So the spring drive was the marriage of those two technologies. And Grand Seiko probably, certainly was the only brand to conceive this, and was probably the only brand that was, would have ever been able to have done it. There were no other brands that were even in a position to develop something like this kind of technology. It's one of the movements that, the entire kind of world, sits at in admiration. Period end. And while that's new technology, relatively speaking, you look at the case here, which was pulled from their 62 GS, an original, Grand Seiko design back from, I think, 67. So the fact that they were able to marry, the old, aesthetic updated, of course, with new technology. This brand, doesn't, they just don't relent. And like you said before, talking about their growth in America, this watch is specifically limited to the United States market. So that brand, again, another good example, is saying, we want to be a part of American watch culture, and I think that one, they should be proud of that, and number two, the American watch community should be very proud that we've made ourselves a place that deserves the really hard work and effort from these brands. That's a pretty big statement, that I'm proud of.
Yeah, I think Grand Seiko is doing an amazing job, and I think the results show. I think a lot of people are very informed about the brand now. Wasn't the case just a few years ago, but if they keep putting out pieces like this, I can only imagine where they'll be in the next few years. But this piece in particular has to be one of my favorites. And being it is titanium, it is so incredibly light. Once it's on your wrist, you might even forget it's there. It's just the execution of detailing and finishing on this watch. It really is second to none. For this price point, it could easily be 100%. Double.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, this watch just came into our conversation when we talk about watches under 10,000, and yet this watch could just as easily come into the conversation if we're talking about watches under 15 or 17.
Yep.
It really could.
Yep.
I mean, I have no hesitation in saying that. Very, very impressive. Now, Grand Seiko is a brand that is widely loved, in the world right now. And now let's talk about a brand that has had, a kind of PR issues historically, but a brand, while it's not my taste, not my aesthetic, I'm a JLC guy, I'm a Cartier guy. We're talking about Hublot now, and just sneak peek, I actually, while I was reluctant to talk about this watch when you brought it to my attention, I actually came to appreciate and recognize its place in the market, and I'm actually excited to be talking about it now. So introduce it.
So this is the Classic Fusion, and I picked the one with this beautiful green dial, accompanied with this green crocodile strap. I think green really is the new it color in the industry right now. And one of the things I love so much about Hublot is they really don't care what other people think about their brand. They put out watches that they want to make, and I absolutely love that. They have executed the integrated strap perfectly into this watch. It's super comfortable. It wears really well, and it comes in different sizes. This one in particular is 42 millimeters. It fits my wrist pretty well. I'm very happy with the fit and finish of it, but I love what Hublot is doing because they offer a watch that is a younger brand in the watch community, but they make a lot of different watches, and they make some great complications as well.
Yeah, one of the big complaints that I have in the watch industry in general is a lack of originality, right? We see it in so many brands, a lack of originality, and that's not a complaint we have at Hublot. It's just not. People have criticized, and this is something that Jean-Claude Biver has famously addressed publicly. People have criticized the likeness between Hublot's and between the Royal Oak or the Nautilus, and I actually disagree. I actually agree with Jean-Claude Biver. I don't think that the Big Bang or the Classic Fusion or anything is very similar at all to those two watches to the point where it's stolen. I don't feel that way. What I do feel, which is certain, is these watches are children of the Genta revolution.
Sure,
that's for sure. General Genta changed the entire design language of sports watches in the early 70s. Period. End. Nothing would ever come in the future that was not in some way related to varying degrees to those watches, the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, and in that same token, just because Patek Philippe is a major brand, if we're going to make the argument that whatever came first is the original, everything else is the ripoff, then by that logic, the Nautilus would be a ripoff, which is not true at all.
Sure.
The Nautilus is a completely original design. The Nautilus is a feat of design, and I can go and I can wax poetic about the Royal Oak and the Nautilus for the next hour, as I have in the past. But the bottom line is, while Hublot is in the words of Jean-Claude Biver, the young kid on the block, the bad boy, and that's certainly, brand speak. It's actually true. And you guys know, I would be the first person that would love to, tear down or criticize a empty, bombastic brand, the brand that steals designs. I'm the first guy to do that. I would love to do that. And I just kind of can't. I really can't here. It would not be fair to the brand. This watch comes in 3 different sizes, 33 millimeters, 38, and what is this, 42, right?
Yep.
I think the 38 is, in my opinion, the most attractive. But I like the color scheme a lot. The movement is a Sellita base, which you're finding, in watches that are, less expensive. You're finding those in watches in the more in the $4,000 range as opposed to $7,000 range. Those watches do not have the same finishing. Those movements are not, while the same base, they're not finished the same way. This watch has an in-house date module as well. It's really quite thin. Again, is this a watch you'd find in my collection? No, I'm looking to buy a Reverso tonight. I'm going to go back and wear my 31 millimeter Cartier in like 10 minutes. But that being said, I cannot deny that it's $7,200. Hublot did a good job. I mean, he really did.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. And you know what? Most people probably didn't know that you can get into Hublot under $10,000, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this on the list.
Yeah, you're so right. Hublot, I think, carries way more kind of like social clout than $7,200. It carries, I think, in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. All right, so let's move into the next brand, a brand that is unlike Hublot, an old brand. It's a heritage Swiss manufacturer. This is Piaget, and this is their Polo. It's $9,900. Again, a lot of value. The movement inside this watch is probably the most impressive movement that we've talked about today.
Absolutely.
Which makes sense considering this watch is the most expensive watch. You have signs of hand finishing everywhere. Cote de Genève, circular graining, beveled bridges, everything, top to bottom is, very meticulously and traditionally finished. That's the insides. Now let's talk about the outsides. This is a 42 millimeter watch. First of all, how do you think it wears?
I love it. This is available on a strap or a bracelet. I personally love the bracelet. It's just the watch that wears really well, even at 42 millimeters, which for me personally is a size that pretty much caps as large as I like to go. But I think that this one wears well on my wrist, which is around 6.5 inches. Piaget is an amazing brand, and this is the first watch that they decided to produce not in a precious metal, which is super unique for the brand. They knew that they needed to get into the sport watch segment, and I'm very happy with the execution of this. I love the beautiful blue dial. There's texturing there. It's a rich blue. What's your thoughts on the piece?
No, I agree with you. This watch came out in 2016, and when it came out, first of all, they were so late to the steel sports watch game. You would think they kind of came in the second wave. Right, the 5711 came back in the mid 2000s. The 15202 came back in like 2013 or 2012, and then this came out 3 years later. Now that being said, this was Patek and AP's second full run at this kind of like design movement. So Piaget has caught the last 4 years of this, and I think they've done well. Like Hublot, this is not a ripoff of any of the other two watches, but it certainly is, again, a child of the Genta Revolution. Nothing wrong with that at all. And the brand, there's no doubt, they finished this watch extremely, extremely well. And they priced this watch perfectly. They kind of skimped on nothing. My only qualm with this watch is, as most of my qualms with watches in general, is more on the logic end. I do not understand why they decided to release this watch in the Polo collection. The Polo collection is historically absolutely nothing like this. The Polo collection is rich gold bullion. It's gaudy. I actually like it. I have fond memories of it. I saw a ton of them growing up, in a large New York Italian family. So I have fond memories of them, but they're nothing like this watch. So that's my only, kind of question mark or criticism.
I can see that, but I think, I'm a car guy as well, and if you look at the new Corvette, they just released a new mid-engine Corvette. It looks nothing like a Corvette anymore, but you're still holding on to the history of the brand, and that's why they're reusing this name. So there is a tie that they still want to hold that together and still hold the name Polo.
Right.
But maybe an evolution that went very, very south. It looks nothing like how it used to, but nonetheless, it's still part of the history, still part of the brand, and I think that's why they wanted to go with that name.
And that being said, I think that this watch is actually much more appealing than the classic Polo. You know what I mean? This watch is actually, I think, much more palatable. You know, again, I have a soft spot for them. But anyway, the Piaget collection in general is a fantastic one. Obviously, the watches, get much more expensive than this. Piaget holds a tremendous clout in the kind of like upper echelon of traditional watchmaking for their ultra thin movements. That's a phenomenal watch brand that I'm very passionate about. But this is a new breed, and I look forward to seeing what this watch brings in the future. But Anthony, those are 5 watches under $5,000 all across the range, like we said, from Oris up to Piaget. I really like getting an idea incrementally of what you're getting dollar for dollar. People often lose sight of that. I
Absolutely.
Care very much about squeezing the most out of my money. So these videos are really fun for me. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love to come on here and chat watches. And you know what? If I can bring some unique perspectives and unique watches to your viewers, I love to do so. And once we reopen, obviously, I'd love to have you all come in as well. But thank you very much for having me on.
I can't wait to do that. When London reopens, we'll all hang out and talk watches.
Let's do it.
Talk soon, man. Thanks again. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you love watches and enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel at Theo and Harris, and I will see you all next time.